Mike picked up his phone and led the crowd in putting their flashlights on their phones in tribute to his son Wyndham, Bray Wyatt. Now, I did get to watch the Bray Wyatt documentary on Peacock. It was very well done. I figure I'll talk about it here. We learned that he hated the Husky Harris character. And he's not alone in that. A lot of people did not like that character, but he knew that it was poking fun at his weight. It was very demeaning. The Uncle Howdy character and the mask was based on a nightmare that Bray had as a child. That was the genesis of it. And we got never-before-seen footage all throughout the documentary. And it was footage of Bray behind the scenes and collaborating on certain ideas. We got a never-before-seen look, though, also at the new Fiend character that Bray was about to unveil before he got sick. It was like basically an updated version of the old Fiend costume and mask, but it was somehow even creepier than the original. But there was a ton of unreleased footage of Wyndham behind the scenes. Very cool to see that, including how tough it was for him to walk around wearing that charred Fiend costume when he came back after the Fiend got burned. He hated it. He hated working in it. The most emotional part was the ending, obviously, and they do get into what happened with his health at the end there in those final months. And it was impossible for me to keep it together when they got to the part with him getting COVID before WrestleMania 39 and then everything that followed right on through his heart issues and the day that he died. And, watching JoJo and his dad and Taylor, Bo Dallas, describing that day and being in the hospital when they got the news, when they got the call, and then they got to the hospital and they got the news from the doctor that he was gone. It was just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see. When they found him in his bed at home, he was not wearing the medical vest that he was supposed to be wearing. It was meant to send an electrical shock to his heart if it stopped beating. His mother was also interviewed for the documentary. His mother said she didn't know why he wasn't wearing it. But when he laid down that day to take a nap, he had picked up his kids from school. His ex-wife said, "Would you pick up the kids?" He said, "Sure." He picked them up. Evidently, he wasn't wearing it. There's a very good chance that he would still be alive today if he was, right? Impossible to know for sure, 100%, but a pretty good chance he would still be here if he was wearing that vest. And it could have been something as simple as him forgetting. He picked his kids up from school. Maybe he left it in his car, right? I mean, there's any number of reasons that could have been, other than him just not wanting to. We just don't know. We'll never know. It's all very sad either way, that here you have a life, after only 36 years on this earth, cut short like that. He still had so much left to do in his life. It's still very eerie to me that you had the Wyatt family. And you think of the original 3 members of that crew. 2 of them are gone at a very young age for reasons that are the polar opposite of what you would normally expect when you hear about a young wrestler death. Because there have been so many young wrestler deaths over the years. Especially you hear about it a lot the last 20, 25 years. A lot of older wrestlers from back then whose lifestyles caught up to them and passed away in their 40s and in their 50s. And you have other wrestlers who die earlier than that, in their 30s. And you hear about drug overdoses and you hear about accidents and just all kinds of stuff, suicides, all kinds of things. And in this case, you have 2 members of this particular faction. One who dies of a very weird medical illness that they said was not COVID, but it was something respiratory. And you have, John Huber, you have, Luke Harper, who dies in the hospital in a situation that you think back to it, it was just almost like it didn't feel real. Like, how did this happen? How did he get so sick? What was it? How did this happen? And that's how he dies. And Bray, you could tell from the documentary, was deeply affected by his death. And then Bray passes away. He gets COVID, he has a heart issue, and he passes away from that. And it's just very strange. It's just very, very eerie. And I feel bad for Eric Rowan now, who's the last surviving member of the original Wyatt family. Braun Strowman, obviously, he was brought in later on. He was interviewed. He was also very broken up by what happened. But just so much left in his life to do. And, Bray had 4 little kids, I think 4. And he was about to get married to JoJo a few months after he passed away. And just, boom, just like that. It's all taken away. I will say this. The one saving grace, and it's weird to say this because him being released in 2021 really sent him into a depression. And it shocked a lot of people, myself included, when I saw his name on the cut list. In hindsight, I'm really glad that happened. I'm glad that it happened because when they brought him back the following year, the fans really embraced him. And in that time period that he was gone from 2021, the summer of 2021 into 2022, he would be, he would run into fans or be contacted by fans constantly on social media. Oh, I miss you. Oh, I can't wait. We love you. We miss you. We can't wait to see you back. And he seemed genuinely moved by the show of love from the fans, even when he came back. And he got that huge reaction at Extreme Rules. And he came back on SmackDown that Friday, and he stood in the ring by himself, and he cut that promo, and the fans just really embraced him, and he seemed genuinely moved by the show of love the people gave him on that SmackDown show when he spoke from the heart, just as himself, as Wyndham for the first time, not as a character. He got to feel the love from the fans that night, and in the months before they brought him back. So often when somebody dies, people say nice things about them after the fact. Or they say nice things about them at their funeral. But they don't get to hear it, right? It only happens after they're gone. He got to experience firsthand how much he was loved by so many people. And that's my one happy takeaway from that whole thing. But then at the very end of the documentary, they slipped in an extra scene showing Bray's lantern. They zoomed in on it, then the screen begins to glitch out, and then we get a very brief, quick shot of Uncle Howdy before it cuts to black. Bo Dallas has been under contract for a while now. They brought him back to be Uncle Howdy, and then Bray died. He's been under contract this entire time, and it looks like they're going to continue to use him in that role still, which will be another way to keep Bray's memory alive by, taking one of his characters and breathing new life into it and keeping it going. And you could tell by listening to Bo throughout the documentary how close they were, how broken up he still is about Bray's death. It'll be nice for him to keep one of those characters alive and see what he can do with it, on his own. And also if Alexa Bliss, when she comes back, if she plays a role in any of that, are they going to put the two of them together? Is she going to still be playing Spooky Alexa? Is she going to have some kind of tie into this? Because she'll be back. I don't know when she'll be back exactly, but I would imagine that we'll see her back on TV very soon. Because I know it's been a number of months since she had her kid, and she's talked about how she's not done. She's going to come back, and we'll see if they tie her into this in any way.